Referral to the full board, revised district field trip policy. Mr. Testani?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I believe it was May 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, we discussed the field trip policy. The one that was provided in your board packet reflects what we discussed. So it's field trips is policy R-6201A.
What's 6201?
And there's 6201 as well. There's both. They're separate. Yep. So on A, look on the second page, we added from the onset to D. So trips that are sponsored by an outside organization, we had talked about, parents must be explicitly advised of the fact that all documentation relating to the trip and must also so indicate from the onset. So you can't later on try to say, after we've been promoting this trip and everything else, by the way, parents, no, this is not a school-sponsored trip. It is a privately sponsored trip by this organization, and here's a waiver form. So that was what we had discussed. I don't know if anybody has any issues with that language or onset from the beginning. I just think that's very clear. And then we had talked about for the approval process and requirements on the third page, everything added is in green. So D was added for local field trips. The trip coordinator must submit the appropriate field trip request form with the required attachments to the school principal 10 days in advance of the trip for their review and authorization. Let me take that word 5 out.
You may want to define what Greater Bridgeport is. What do you call Greater Bridgeport? I call it Bridgeport, Fairfield, Stratford, Trumbull.
Is that for examples, you mean?
Yeah.
So that's in 10C. You're looking at. Okay, so for 2 trips out of Greater Bridgeport example. So.
Or do you want to just call it a radius?
Well, it says here all out-of-state trips. So that's something we can talk about. Do we want?
Well, we talk about out of state, but New York is,
right,
30 miles from here. So
Right.
you want to just create a radius, anything that's beyond this.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. I think we just did for like out-of-state day trips. We may not need this. We may not need number 2 any longer because we put E in out-of-state day trips. Just have to be submitted 30 days.
Okay.
Do we want to redline then trips out of Greater Bridgeport?
That?
Yeah. Do you guys think that there's a need for that? I don't.
I'm sorry, where were we?
Oh, yeah, because it's here, an
We
example.
added number E, out-of-state day field trips. That was part of the discussion last time. And we just put that, you got to submit it 30 days in advance. So if you're going to New York to see the, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum or whatever, just have to submit it 30 days before you go for approval.
Right. Didn't we, I'm sorry, Mr. I think we discussed just eliminating the out of state and having it just covered by the overnight trip, because you're not traveling more than X amount of miles without having to stay overnight somewhere, because you're not going to drive 12 hours.
Well, there has to be a submission period. You can't just say we're going to go to New York.
Right, to you though.
Right. That's all that. That's not going to the board.
Okay, wait.
That one's just going to the executive director,
Okay, wait.
supervisor, 30 days in advance.
Okay.
So I think
It's number 9, right?
10.
10. Okay, any trips, executive. Okay.
So
Apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I think we can redline examples number 2, probably be redlined out.
Yeah, strike it.
And then we did overnight.
But we don't say when you say overnight, 30 days in advance. That's why I'm a little confused. I believe.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. I don't, this is what we collected some notes from the last meeting. That's why we're here. We can talk about. So an overnight field trip. We had talked about going to the teaching and learning committee and then the full board prior to collecting any money. So that really gives you at least a month, probably more, because collecting the money is going to be, you need to give people some time. Unless it's $100, it may not be a big deal, but most overnight field trips, between the transportation and the hotel, and then any entrance into, if it's a museum or what have you. So I think this gives everybody enough planning time that you're not going to get something at the last minute and then you don't get to ask questions because it's a rush, because everybody's going to lose their deposit. Because we've seen that before in the past where you guys are forced to say yes because people already paid significant amount of money. So this says you got to get the approval from teaching and learning and the board before you go out to collect money from the families, which I think protects all the families then. And then the other thing we put, trips to foreign lands, that's what we called it. This again, got to go to the teaching and learning committee and the full board before any deposits are even collected. So that requires people to plan. I'm going to say, if you want to go on a trip in April or May, say April break, you're going to have to start doing this right when you get back, September.
Foreign land? Canada?
Foreign land is Canada, yeah. I mean,
I'm just,
like I said, I am very leery of these foreign trips simply because it only represents a small percentage of students who can, number one, afford it. And number two, in most cases, you're looking at 20 kids out of maybe a school that has a high school that has at least 1,000. It does provide an opportunity for kids to leave the country that may have never left the country before. But at the same time, we are trying to prepare our kids to be successful in life where they can hopefully, have a good job and be able to travel and enjoy themselves and see the world. So it's really up to you. That still can be brought, and if the board approves it, they approve it.
Chairman Wilder brings up an interesting point about foreign lands.
I just wonder if it should be a little more clearly defined.
Yeah, I think it could be better spelled out, like maybe the contingent United States, because foreign lands, that would still allow for trips crossing the ocean to certain territories and such like that. Maybe, what's the proper term?
You want to say outside the continental U.S.?
Is it continental or contingent?
Because it's contiguous United States, which are the lower 48. There's the continental U.S., which is basically the same thing. But you could say anything outside of North America.
Okay, so if there's a trip and they want to go to Mexico.
That's North America. It's crossing a border that we share with them.
So that's
different. So you would say trips to countries outside of North America.
All right, so if I want to go to Mexico or Canada, that is considered an out of state. An overnight field trip. That's an F.
Right. You could say that, or you could, yeah. Or, yeah. Oh, if we're talking about
Trips that require a passport,
How about the 48? Because we got a couple of islands in the Caribbean and that are like our territories. If we put the whole United States, I think the 48 was a good suggestion because that's more clear.
if you're just talking about who's going to approve.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not approving this. I do.
All right.
I do not.
Yeah, then I would,
And I'm not speaking just for me.
no, then I would say trips to foreign lands because
5 years from now. the next
there could be some
shouldn't have that.
kind of, there could be some kind of civil unrest in Mexico where you do want to have the board approve this. So maybe it's not,
I think
whether it's overseas or not. If it's not in a
trips
place that's,
outside the.
But- if it's not in a place controlled by the US government, that's where I think the concern is. So
Right.
maybe this is fine the way it is.
Okay.
But that's.
Now, we talked about if available, trip insurance will be offered to each student's families to voluntarily accept or deny, and we will not be held responsible for any more monies forfeited because insurance was not accepted by a student's family. That we added that. Right? Do we want to make it mandatory for them to, or do we just leave it up to the families? Because my only concern is that a family then is not made aware that if you don't take this insurance, or it's not explained clearly, maybe at,
How much,
Central High
how
School,
much does this,
they did a great job in telling the families about it. In another school, it's not communicated as clearly. And now something happens where there's a death in the family, the kid can't go, and the parents are out $500.
do you know how much this
Yeah.
of insurance costs, order of magnitude?
I wouldn't be able to say. I'm going to say a few $100, I'm sure.
I would think it'd be based on the price of the trip.
Yeah,
So I mean, you might pay $30 for a $3,000.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah,
I don't want it to be onerous, but I mean, if somebody's going to spend $4,000 on a trip, they should be able to spend another 200 to protect that.
possibly.
I mean, I don't know,
$200 could be make or break for,
but I mean, if you were coming up with $4,000
yeah, and that's as
through
long,
a fundraiser.
as long as it's specifically explicitly stated that you can purchase it and protect it. I mean, because some people have different risk tolerances.
Should we require then on the permission slips that go out, that there's something that says that, and
They're declining.
you initial that you're declining?
Yeah, at least if it's offered, they get a chance to do it if they want. Just like with the laptop insurance, some people will take the risk to place the laptop at a couple of $100
Right.
rather than pay
Correct.
$50
Right.
10 years.
Self-insured.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't
If it's on,
take insurance on my phone.
it's on the permission,
Some people I know do it
Religious.
religiously, right?
but if it's on the permission slip,
Right, then they're aware.
they're always going to see it.
They have to initial that.
Initial that.
And then on the last page here, the 6201, we just changed some of the language to academic and social emotional experiences. Now, the one thing that, we stopped, I don't recall, it's been a long time since we stopped, like amusement in water parks will not even be approved.
It's kind of sad.
Well, that's why I'm asking, do we want to, because there are instances, like, for example, 8th grade, we always took the kids in a lot of the schools to like Holiday Hill for the day. Not an amusement, a water park, but there's a pool there.
Yeah.
There's, kids are eating all day, playing basketball, going out on canoes. I think there is some social emotional learning involved in that. And
I agree.
Interpersonal
yeah, I mean,
interactions,
Does our liabilities increase or something like that? Was that why it was originally taken out, because of excess liability?
no, I don't, I can't see why it would be a excess liability when,
I remember going on field trips to amusement parks as well.
you want me to just check with Bertram and Moses on if there's anything that, and if they don't see that there's any issue, do we want to remove that?
Yeah, why not?
Listen,
See what they have to say.
I mean,
And also maybe CABE as well, see how many districts have this policy. I mean, are we pretty unique, or is this like?
I'll email the Fairfield County group. There's 20 of us roughly.
Yeah.
See what they do, just to get a quick response. I can get that probably next day or so. But I'll reach out to Kate to see if there's anything, because if not, I wouldn't mind taking that out. Just because I don't see the harm in taking kids on a trip that
It's just fun.
right? Especially when it's a celebratory and,
Yeah, like end of the
8th grade
year, yeah.
Senior trip. I mean,
Actually, I was discussing that with my son one time. It's like, we can't go to an amusement park. That's not. It's like,
I remember as a senior in high school, I know it's a long time ago, but there was always a senior trip. I mean, we went to Washington DC, but there was other trips, where it's fun, right?
Mhm.
I don't see what the problem with that is.
Is any question about in the last page when you said Bridgeport Public School would not be responsible for any blah, blah, blah? That's in a learning committee, because you say over here, say, with the trivia be approved by the teacher and learning, but Bridgeport Public School is not responsible. Remember, parents, people, lawyers, they look to different, Bridgeport School is not responsible, but teacher and learning made the decision. So we don't want thing coming back up, the committee get sued. You got my point?
No, I know. No, that language represents because you guys represent the district. So they're not going to be able to, like I said, if you paid to go for your son to go to Washington and at the last minute, something happened and he can't go, you didn't buy the insurance, you're going to lose the deposit because that's what normally would happen. Or you may lose everything. But that's why you may want to take the insurance.
yeah, one thing I would question about is okay, I lost it. Okay, back to D. Trips are sponsored by an outside organization.
What page you on?
What am I on?
You on 10?
Second page, D.
Yeah, trip sponsored by an outside organization. Under A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5D.
By B?
D.
Correct. Now, trip sponsored by an outside. We had some discussion about like if it's planned on school property, if teachers go, it's going to seem to appear to be sponsored by the schools and somehow try to.
Yeah, so like VIP, for example, takes kids on the college tours. It is made very clear, they give out the permission slip. It's their permission slip from the get-go. I'm not sure where they gather with the bus. I have seen them gather here in the past where the bus, this is the meeting place and the drop-off place. I think how that information is distributed has to be clear. That's why I think when it says explicitly advised, that parents realize this is not a Bridgeport Public Schools trip, even though, Mr. Brown from Harding is going, but Mr. Brown works a part-time job with this agency, so that's why it's not a.
So let's say 5 staff members from Bridgeport Public School get together in a coffee shop, plan a trip for their students to say, let's be ridiculous.
No, this is.
To Kosovo.
Yeah.
Like right now. And then after school, they call all the kids and say, hey, we got this trip planned to Kosovo. 5 teachers are going. But it's not a school trip. Now, I know my son's teacher as an authority figure in the school. And even though that's telling me it's not a school-sponsored trip, I'm associating these teachers with the school and giving them a certain weight of authority and trust in my mind that they are teachers.
Yep.
Now, I know we can't stop them from planning trips outside the school time, but we can guide their interactions with students outside of the school day. Because we do have regulations in place where they can't like interact too much on social media, say certain behaviors are unacceptable on social media. And I'm just wondering if perhaps that concept could be extended to further protect the
Yeah,
Appearance of being a school-sponsored
I
trip.
think that's a good point. Like I said at the last meeting, when it was mentioned about a trip to Germany done by another local high school, I spoke to the superintendent in Monroe. And he was very clear that it was a teacher of the strings program. And they were not allowed to even use the copy machine and copy paper to make the flyers or hand permission slips. Everything had to be done off school property. So I mean, we could add language there that any staff member who participates in organizing an outside field trip
Cannot do so on school grounds or using school resources or some such like.
yeah,
And must explicitly state that it's not for them personally, that this is not, they are not representing Bridgeport Public Schools or something.
They should also disclose to their supervisor that they're doing this.
Yes.
So that somebody's got an eye on it, they is aware, okay, Mr. Testani's planning a trip outside of here. And they're monitor that he's not doing anything that he inadvertently misrepresents.
so we got to do something that's cannot use school resources, school grounds as a meeting place.
School resources, school grounds is a meeting place. School branding, district branding. Or images of Bridgeport Public Schools. Because you could make a promo flyer and put a picture of Central on it. That starts to look like this is a
Right.
central.
And I think to your point, must inform immediate supervisor prior to initiating or soliciting.
Initiating the process of planning the trip.
Informing,
Trip planning process. Okay.
is informing to, just throwing this out there. Maybe it could be a little stronger.
I'm gonna actually,
For the approval, but can we, is that something we could be authorized?
Yeah, you can, yeah, I mean,
I mean, it may be a little too,
you have the authority to require that a supervisor approve outside activity, I think.
but you could,
No, and that's like any outside activity.
do you want me to reach out to Eric Marshall from the CEA, Uniserv rep for the BEA to help us on this?
Okay.
He wants to protect his,
Sure.
because he doesn't want to be called in later on to represent somebody who clearly violated this. So they may be able to give us a little bit.
if we could, like, 'cause, I mean, permission is a strong thing and it could be used. Just,
Acknowledged.
I
I mean,
mean, we don't want it to be like everybody to say, no, no, no. Must we have like a, maybe alternative language? to-
That's why-
Out.
That's
Yeah.
why I say to let them know. And if the supervisor thinks there's something really inappropriate,
Probably raise it up.
if she's going to say something.
yeah,
I think.
right. You're planning a trip to go to whatever.
Kosovo.
Close. Well, but it could be, I'm gonna plan to take a trip to Las Vegas.
Mhm.
That could raise some, like, what is your education? What is your angle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
at the same time, you know.
Probably not a good place to take an 18-year-old, you know?
If it's,
Yeah,
but if it's totally outside of the school, he's not using resources,
Yeah.
and all that stuff, you question authority of the principal, let's say,
right on
and
it.
forbid it.
Or the principal to notify parents personally and say, I hope you're aware that this is not, I mean, I would follow up if I was the principal, especially given the fact that it's Parent Square. Now you can send out immediately to families that, this, let every family know this is not associated with the Bridgeport Public Schools in any way, shape or form. You assume all risk. Because I would want to know if I was a principal, if one of my teachers, say a male teacher, is planning on take a trip and is only taking females. That's problematic, or vice versa. I don't want to, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. We've had
Yeah.
two instances in the Bridgeport Public Schools where it was the other way around, where we've had two teachers that had inappropriate contact with students, so, and they were female, so you're right.
That sounds good.
All right, I'll reach out to Eric and I'll also try to see if Cabe has any language around this.
Okay.
And Floyd.
Okay.
But other than that, I think that is probably something that we should have clearly stated somewhere, that, so the teachers are aware as well. And this new field trip policy, once it's ratified, should be sent out to all district personnel. So they're aware that there's been a change and that there's no one to say that they didn't know or they didn't read, and that's plead ignorance.
So you want to say, come back around this time next month? Try to maybe finalize this, because I think you want to have this ratified at the full board level at the beginning of the next school year.
Yeah, so if we can do this first week in August at this level, and then first board meeting
At the end of August.
yeah, we can approve it.
Okay,
I think it would be helpful.
okay.
Will be all the trade gonna be the same with the protocol about the coffee, stuff like that, or not?
I mean, if we want to ask some COVID protocols, I don't think we want to put that in the policy, but it looks like, I mean, there are no restrictions now with travel, so it would be hard pressed to require.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but you never know, so.
Any line in there, didn't read it closely enough. Any line, just all trips must adhere to safe and local health protocols or whatever. That'll be a good catch-all, because not, the next one might be not COVID, might be worrying about monkeypox. Because the diseases will change over time, but they'll probably, if anything like that.
Well, and you know, because you
I think it should be, it's an understood anyway.
just some general statement that any participants will be compliant to any health-related mandates in effect at the time.
So under number 5, rules applicable to all trips, do we want to add that all participants will follow all state, local, and federal safety protocols in place at time of travel?
Yeah,
To that effect.
good catch-all.
But question me to this, Danny, I know because the situation, I had a chance to have a protocol about the COVID. You know, it's another virus now, they call it the monkey.
Monkeypox.
Yeah, it's bad in New York, so I'm talking, that's why, so. I'm just concerned, I'm just worried.
Yeah, that's a good catch, because the way we just say is it's gonna cover everything if they come.
If there's some kind of mandate for monkeypox,
It's
It's gonna.
you got to be compliant.
It's understood.
About
I say
civil
state,
comes next.
federal, state, and local,
Yeah, that cover.
because you may be going to New York and there's.
And they may have different
Right.
requirements.
Correct.
So you go into Kosovo and there you've got, a whole different requirement that the State Department imposes on you to go there.
I would hope, I would hope the board would not approve a trip to Kosovo.
But that might be totally different from a trip to England.
Right.
That the State Department.
I don't want to receive the phone call that something happened in England.
Hey, are we all good? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ayes have
7:46 PM. That's that.
Ayes have it.
Guys happy.
Oh, yeah.